Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin. I'm here. We have so much stuff to talk about tonight that I just got this bad feeling we're not going to get to all of it, but a couple of broadcast professionals like you and I are going to make the best of it. That's all we can.
We're going to do what we can, right? We're going to talk about. You want to talk about China and Walmart? Interested to see what you have to say here. We're going to talk about the sentences for the folks who were at the whole January 6th thing, and we're going to talk about maybe a lighter topic, whether or not historical preservation stuff is overrated.
Yeah. And maybe a little bit of the Elon ADL kind of ongoing battle. And I definitely got to take a few shots at Liberty Safe. I'm not sure if you caught that, but I'll be glad to break it down for
that.
you.
Yeah. So
I think we should take some shots at him.
All right. I know. I think it's fair. And Trisha, thanks for joining us. Even though you're in the middle of a move, appreciate it.
Yeah, we really. She sent me some, potential topics for the after show too that we could chit chat about. Shelly's out there.
Hey, Shelly. Thanks for joining us too. Yeah, we're gonna go live in just a sec, but appreciate y'all being here. And yeah, I don't know. We're just have a fun show. As we often do.
Absolutely.
And all right, so we're gonna go live in 20 seconds.
That sounds good. Be singing the praises of Walmart in China, man. That's gonna, figure we start with a controversial topic to bring people in. I love me some Walmart and I love me some China.
You heard it here, folks. Tim loves China. All right. And on that note, we're going to go in now.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson here today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin, and look, man, I hope everybody had a blast this past weekend. I know that I did. I spent it with, I don't know, it felt like a couple hundred people. We get together. We have a yearly event. It was started by a friend of mine before he passed. It was continued by the people that bought his house from his family. It's just a wonderful deal. And I hope all of you guys had the opportunity to spend quality time with people that you care about. And so I did, and I hope you did as well.
Yeah, hope you all did. I did. I had a nice time. I went to a little kiddie amusement park in Alcott, New York that our producer, Bob D'Angelo, has been telling me about forever. Since he knew Seamus was born. He's like, yeah, take him to this. And we finally did. It was awesome. It was 25 cents. It's out in Alcott. It's a lot of fun. Alcott Beach Park, I think is what it's called. But it's great. Yeah, great spot.
That's fun, man. Stuff like that is fun. Those things barely survive in New York State as it is because of the insurance requirements and the taxation that they face. So it's great that you guys have one near you that is still in business. I think that's great. Kevin, one of the things I kind of want to poke my finger at an ugly sore. Like, I know people hate China and they hate Walmart. And when I listened to the Republicans on stage last week, I feel like we're already kind of at war with China. Certainly there's a neocon element here in our society where now we're actually providing financial aid to Taiwan, which is a recent news story. And China is not happy about these things. Okay. So arguably, I want people to understand the benefits of both. At the same time, the co-benefits of the Chinese philosophy and the Walmart philosophy. And look, guys, if you have problems with what they do, I get it, man. Put them out there. Come talk to me however you want to do it. But look, when I take a look at Walmart's homepage, right? Our company's mission is to save people money so that they can live better. By running an everyday low-cost company, we deliver everyday low prices on great merchandise and help customers around the world provide for their families. Now, arguably, on some level, they've been incredibly successful. What do you say? What do you think?
Yeah. No, I mean, they have lots of folks shop there. And You shop there more. I got to I do a lot of Amazon shopping now, but
Yeah.
but like their point of being able to provide low cost goods to people, both groceries and home goods, is I think it's generally a good thing.
So look, here's the thing. At a point when I was a younger man, let's say, I don't know, 25 years ago, I had bought my first house, right? And certain tools were literally priced out of the market for me. Like, let's say I wanted to sand a door or something like that. I'd have to go to the local hardware store and buy their one offering of a sander that was priced at something like $50 for a piece of junk, right? And so Walmart came to town, okay? And I needed inexpensive tools that didn't necessarily have to last forever. I knew what I was buying. I knew that they weren't necessarily the same quality. But if they sanded a freaking door or they took dirt off of a floor that I couldn't just get by hand, like there was all of a sudden, all of my options opened up. Now,
Hey, can I pause for 1 second?
yeah,
Quick plug for an ad that we actually run on our breaks in WYSL for the Seek Tool Shed. I haven't mentioned it on the podcast version in a little bit, but yeah, if you live in the Rochester region, there's a tool library. It's $25 a year. We run little PSAs for them on WYSL, and you can borrow a sander there, and if you need it for one project, give it back. And they're having a fundraiser on Friday too. Check them out. So
wow,
over
that's
at
we've talked about that place before, and I think yeah, and your involvement in that and your support of that is a fantastic deal, right?
yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna be at Sager's in Rochester Friday night if y'all want to come by and support the tool shed.
do they sell beer, Kevin?
Sager's, yes, it's a brewery. So yes.
Perfect. For guys, go have a beer with Kevin. He's having one now. Go have a beer with Kevin Friday night and support the tool shed, right? Like that's an amazing community resource that the more you use it, the more it's going to grow, right? The more like guys like me are going to drop off their old tools. Like it's going to be a good
bunch of
deal,
cool
man.
stuff there. Yeah,
Yeah.
didn't mean to derail this whole segment, but like I'm excited for the fundraiser Friday,
No,
and
no, no.
it's a good thing.
Look, you can't derail Walmart because I'm not without understanding and sympathy for people that don't like them. But I'm right now I'm singing their praises, Kevin. And so I'm gonna say here, like today, one-stop shopping, second to none, Walmart. Okay. Low prices, second to none. They lead the way in low price technology. They lead the way in TV sales. Like people get the biggest screen TVs for the lowest dollar per square inch. Any place else, you can't get those kind of prices at Best Buy. Walmart is in this to win it. Okay, now they've also done something. They've disrupted the supply chain on some level, and they're a logistical expert at the same time. So supply chains, like they don't actually pay their suppliers until after they sell something. It's kind of a neat thing. They have the buying power to do that. It can look, maybe they've abused some of that power through the years, but right now that's one of their strategies for delivering low cost goods. They look small downtown areas, especially like going down in New York, guys. You haven't listened to me, and so you're going to hear me say it one more time. You guys destroyed the parking with the urban renewal plan back in the 90s. You had never fixed the parking. You have a building, a parking garage that's destroyed, and now people can't even park in that because it's been deemed unsafe. Had you not messed up the parking in downtown Oneonta, you may have been more able to compete. Maybe the pharmacy wouldn't have went out of business. People want convenient parking. I can pull into a Walmart parking lot, see my car from the door. I hardly ever forget where I put it, regardless of how busy Walmart is. Like this is a huge advantage. Our local Walmart was so shrewd on delivering low prices that they set up outside of the city limits by like 300 yards just so that they could charge lower sales tax on the things that they had to charge sales tax to. You want cheap ammo, you can go to Walmart. It's the cheapest. Sometimes now with the ammo supply problems, you still have to wait for it. But like I was buying, 100 shells of 12 gauge shotgun ammo for $22 back late 2022, if I remember correctly. And I haven't had to buy it since because we haven't been doing much shooting. Like we just don't have the time.
Yeah,
So,
right.
Walmart does things and they've lived by their motto that they constantly explore low prices. So where do you want me to go with China or Walmart? Do you want me to keep going, or do you want a chance to
Well,
rebut some of the
I mean,
problems?
I think you've sung the praises of Walmart enough. They're not paying us for this. But like generally, it's a good thing. And I know, and I'll, if I were making a counter argument to that, like if I wanted to talk about like Walmart more, I could say like, well, they rely on manufactured goods that used to be produced in the United States, but now are produced overseas in places like China, although it's spreading out to other places as well as they develop further. And they are part of the destruction of the American economy, if I'm taking that perspective on it.
Hang on,
So, Tim, what would you
they're
say
part
to
of the
that?
destruction of what?
Of the American economy.
Of the American economy. How so?
If I were making that argument,
If you were, okay.
If I were, because I'm not, but if I were making that argument, they'd say like the types of goods that like are available at Walmart are made in China. I know where you're going with it. And a lot of those goods were made in the United States. For instance, I remember seeing this documentary about Rubbermaid containers that were made out in somewhere in Ohio. It might have been near Worcester, Ohio. And they used to all be manufactured there, and they shipped all their manufacturing overseas, in this case to China. But other places like auto parts manufacturers and like plates and dishes, China or Mexico, or sometimes other places like Pakistan, all that got moved overseas. Used to be American jobs. Now it's not anymore. What do you say to folks like that?
Okay, so what I say to folks like that is I understand where you're coming from, but when it comes right down to it, and we're going to get to one of their employment policies because they're a completely non-discriminatory, very flexible employer. And here is, and for the same reason as I'm about to tell you, that the government allowed them to miscommunicate some of that stuff. And I've often and long been an advocate for lowering the U.S. corporate tax rate. I've made jokes about it recently, but I've long talked about the fact that the U.S. corporate tax rate for manufactured goods is the highest in the world. Okay. Now, we're a responsible manufacturer. We're a clean manufacturer. If we want to go to war with China and Pakistan in manufacturing, we have to lower our corporate tax rates. Now, and we also have to write better laws about communication because Walmart was able to get away with mislabeling that stuff. It wasn't a dirty trick on Walmart. It was some technicality law that they may have purchased from a corrupt politician. Don't get me wrong, but there was that allowed them to communicate products that were assembled in the USA, even if they were just put into a box and the box was made in China and the unit was made in China. That's, guys, your government not forcing Walmart to be truthful with you. That to me is where the real issue is. And when we get into the problems with Walmart, we're again going to be sticking our angry finger at the government. What do you think about that, Kevin?
I mean, I agree, but like there is like rational economic incentives for like them to do what they're doing too, right? Like, isn't this just a free market at work? Like, why is
okay?
Should the government be getting involved then in like reshoring American manufacturing or putting restrictions on what they can sell because otherwise the incentives are too good for Walmart to resist?
Okay, so right, which is great, right? I'm all for like Walmart having to say, hey, this sander is made in China, right? Like I'm all for them having to tell the truth about that stuff. I'm also all for like people recognizing that when we have a powerhouse, an economic powerhouse like China, that they are going to take every single step that they can to avail themselves of the legal structure in the United States. And one of the beauties of Walmart is that they take advantage of the welfare cliff. Kevin, did you know that?
I've heard that before.
Okay, so
well, yeah. I mean, there's an accusation, and I know some folks have like jumped in the comments to defend Walmart and their workers and their practices, but there's an accusation that they pay their workers just enough so they get a little bit of money, they work for them, but they still qualify for benefits, and therefore they're able to take advantage of the welfare system in like whatever states they're operating in. So almost like double dipping.
Yeah, and especially in a relatively generous state like New York with welfare benefits, that certainly is. Does it have to be like a written down conspiracy, or can they just factually do it? Right? Can they just say, be aware that their employees are not going to work more than 20 hours for 30, $12.50 an hour, because at some point those people get knocked off the welfare cliff. What is actually to me an argument for is a gentler transition from the welfare cliff to making real money providing for your family. That would be a better economic system. And again, like
I
we can be
agree.
mad at Walmart for doing that, but the government is the one that screwed this stuff up. So
Yeah.
Walmart like
But
gives me a
well,
platform.
Walmart, they're going to respond to rational economic incentives, and it's not necessarily like always Walmart doing this too, because like this happens in a lot of jobs, including like small businesses, where like people say, no, I don't want to work more than this many hours because then I lose my benefits, and so they work like a little bit more, and they might lose like $20,000 in benefits while only gaining like $5,000 to $7,000 of income. Like it's not worth it to them. Why would they do that? The rational move from both the employer and from the employee is to just limit your hours so you're still able to qualify for some of these benefits. And again, a lot of the stuff is complicated to how you qualify and everything, but like they're acting in a rational way because then it prevents some of those folks who start to see the advantages of operating in that way from being able to advance their career and making more and being more successful 5 to 10 years later.
So that to me has always been, well, the two largest problems that I have with Walmart is their ability to dissemble or avoid telling the truth about where their products come from legally at the behest of the U.S. government with the cooperation of the U.S. government and the shrewdness with which they take advantage of laws. Now, one of the things that I admire Walmart for, and it's in the same employment vein, is they are completely in our area a non-discriminatory. They have non-discriminatory hiring practices. They hire retired people. They hire old people. They hire people that aren't that smart. They hire people that aren't that clean, and they put them to work, Kevin. And in a way, it's a beautiful slice of humanity for me when we go to a Walmart. Also, I get it when people make the Walmart jokes, but still, it works, man. They have people in there putting in productive hours. It's kind of cool.
No, sure. I mean, like some folks who like I don't want or can't do other jobs like this. This is a good opportunity for them. They want something a little bit lower key, and there's some options available. So with the Walmart stuff, like I get what you're saying with all that, and generally, like I'm in favor of it, and I think like one of the big arguments in favor of Walmart is just like how substantially they've improved people's lives by giving them access to cheaper goods and services.
Absolutely.
And I do mean services too, because they a lot of places don't just sell like goods; they also like offer like haircuts and eye care and like all sorts of stuff, which is more easily accessible. They're getting into some of the medical care stuff, like they're running into some government barriers with that. But like, hey, here's a spot where like you have the ability to get all this stuff. They're patching it all together. They're making it affordable for folks who might not be able to access these services effectively otherwise, and including the cheap goods. And I know I was making the argument, like the kind of anti-China argument, but like
Sure.
it does enrich people in a lot of ways. Like, yeah, some of those jobs have moved around a bit, right? Like a lot of times, like the manufacturing jobs didn't really go away. Like individual factories went away, but like collectively, we're still doing more manufacturing, like by volume, than we ever have at any time in American history. And there's still a lot of manufacturing jobs. The factories themselves ended up employing fewer people while producing more. Like we got better at it, right? And we
Sure.
produce it like higher end goods, and we do things like do the design and the marketing and all this other stuff, while China manufactures like the cheap, lower skill part of it. And it isn't just China, it's other places. And that process, again, provides cheap goods for us. So we're able to buy more, to have better things, to improve our life. And the people in China too, disregarding the awful Chinese government for a moment, but the people in China, like for them, those low wage jobs are a huge opportunity and a huge like chance to step up, right? Like the folks who are in China and Bangladesh producing like these like cheap garments and like plastic goods and like iPhones, things like that, that is way better than subsistence farming. They're making squat by like American standards, but it's way better than subsistence farming. And a bunch of people are like, oh, they're employing sweatshops and stuff. Like those people are happy to take those opportunities because it's better than the alternative. They build up a little bit more wealth and they do a bit better, and they're able to like eke out an existence that like we take for granted.
So free trade benefits society in China, and it benefits especially the poor and the middle class in the United States. Like, I think that do you think that's a fair statement? Like,
I
if
do.
and then if we go the opposite direction, war disproportionately punishes the poor and the middle class in both societies. So this aggressive militaristic stance that we're taking against China, when in fact Kevin, they sell us $500 billion worth of goods. Okay. So we had a debate about whether they make our medicine or not. Arguably, they make 6% of our medicines are made there, but 8 out of 10 medical products have some piece of Chinese manufacturing involved in its delivery to the American people. So it's like, it's one of those things where the sum of the parts, we'd still be hurt medically if we decided to go to war with China and stop doing business
Yeah.
with them.
We don't do that again, and it's not universally true, but like there's that, like, because of that economic interdependence, there's a lot of incentive not to actually engage in some real conflict, because
Right. So let's grow it, man. Let's do this. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Arguably, China does get involved in theft of intellectual property, right?
well, yeah,
get
no, they
involved
do,
in
they do
stealing.
some bad stuff.
Yeah, they do some
The
crap.
Chinese government
I mean,
does
they're
some bad
freaking
stuff.
communists.
Yeah, the communists, the Chinese government, they do bad stuff, and companies that are effectively owned by the Chinese government do bad stuff: intellectual property theft, abuse of workers, and like in addition to all the other aggressive international policy stuff that China is doing too. Yeah, it's not great. And I wish they'd stop being an authoritarian government. Like the big hope of like neoliberalism and capitalism was supposed to be that like China would get freer after like they had greater economic development. But as soon as they saw that happening in places like Hong Kong, they shut it down.
Mhm. Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna have to continue that conversation during our break. Sorry, WYSL audience. We're gonna be back here on A Free Solution in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. And at 22. Yeah, that's
Yeah, so I think that was fun. I think it will be controversial. It may get some of our conservative or more conservative WYSLers. And look, the
we'll see.
point about
I
them
know
being an authoritarian government can't be understated, nor should it ever be left off of any conversation about the Chinese success story, right? Like, but I would say that arguably, though, we can't deny that our trading with China has benefited a system of social rights and social welfare in China. It's benefited a transition to an economy that can be more efficient at developing and providing goods for Chinese people. Like, I don't think there's a real argument against
that's
that.
part of that. And even at the development, like there's probably seeds there of like people who want to actually agitate for liberty. Like they're aware of a lot of stuff that's happening. Like some technology even the most authoritarian governments can't fully contain yet, and you can see like setbacks like what happened with Hong Kong, but
Sure.
which I know some people are like, oh, that's just American agitators. I'm like, well, no, the people there like could kind of see what Americans are doing. Hey, like I can just like be mad city council didn't do anything and not go to jail for it. That's what you can do in America. Why can't we do that here? You know, like
I can have a radio show where I say, like, praise the glories of Walmart and China and knock the government in the very next sentence. And as a general rule, I don't feel as though I'm going to get tossed in jail for it. And I think that that's probably something in China that does happen. Occasionally I travel down wormholes where people are telling me or arguing that China isn't as authoritarian as it's being presented in the mainstream media. But I don't know, I worry about the Uyghur people. It's kind of maybe it's a weird virtue signal because there's nothing I can do other than buy more Chinese goods because they're cheaper. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. That's
a
my
lot of
power
stuff.
there.
It's a lot of that like low end manufacturing is actually moving away from China too, because they're getting economically developed enough where they're starting to move into different like service sector and other things too. Like
they're stealing
happening in
high tech
America.
freaking high-tech patents on stuff. They deliver some very good solar panel systems that are reliable and that are intuitive, and they back their product up. It's whatever.
Yeah. I'm gonna get to a couple of these comments because Sam says he was a support manager at Walmart for a few years. Some things I liked, others he didn't, but seeing it from the inside earned my respect. just
Yeah.
to throw in the perspective of someone who worked there. And I know other folks who are saying like it pays well. Like I've heard that too. Steve Becker.
Oops, sorry. Yeah, go back to Steve's. It is, Steve. It is. Well,
Corrupt politician redundant. Steve asked.
yeah, of course, it is redundant, and I think that arguably some of them don't even realize what a corrupt system they're participating in because they keep virtue signaling on it. They keep not admitting that they're doing what we know that they're doing. It's an amazing thing. And what's even more amazing is that approximately 45% of the people in this world that are actively politically buy one argument or the other from the red team that all ends up in the same place, with the government still being able to sell regulations to their buddies, to still pick winners and losers, to move forward in a cronyistic, fascistic kind of like increasingly authoritarian kind of regime. And it's really annoying to me. And how do we wake them up, Steve? We try, right? We just keep trying. That's it. So I don't know. It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. You just gotta keep going.
And Patricia points out that China has regularly been accused of child labor issues. They've been accused of a cultural genocide against the Uyghurs. Arguably, the data from that is a bit suspect, but I certainly don't think that they welcome religious competition in their society. And I'm sure that they have put in restrictions, if not actual.
You're reading too much paleo content.
Paleo what?
Paleo conservative content. They're all like, China's fine. That's just the American propaganda brainwashing you. Is what they say. But no, there's some pretty shady stuff going on with the Uyghurs.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I agree. But we can explore that on a different show because that's
for sure.
I sung the praises of China. You rebuffed. We both critiqued China. We both offer valid critiques of Walmart and China, but also their dedication to providing low-cost goods in an efficient market form has done very well for the middle class and the poor, and the government has stolen all of our gains. And that's
and John points out America is also world leader in labor cost. Yeah, and like workers, they get paid more here. They're able to demand more, and there's a lot of mostly that's a good thing, right? Like again, it's a good thing because like the workers who are here, they're doing well. They're manufacturing more and better stuff than like most other places in the world, and some of these lesser developed countries where there aren't the skill sets for both logistics and management and production and all this stuff, like they're getting the opportunity to grow their economy and build wealth and do all this stuff too. And it's you always end up with these arguments about sweatshops, and I'm the weirdo libertarian who's going, no, actually it's not great. I don't have to be like super happy about it, but for a lot of those folks, it's better than the alternative.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how economies like grow and develop and people like dig their way out of poverty.
Sure. And it's how the concept, like, look, we're such a wealthy society that we had the leisure and the benefit of a powerful government that won't mess with us too much to whine about whatever issues we want to whine about. And frankly, the only way to get there is through developing wealth, so. And look, I don't want kids working in China, but if they're working in the Congo, they're working in Africa, it's gross.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, and how it ends up getting fixed is that parents are able to make enough money that like they don't have to do that, and you create systems where kids get taken care of instead of like just being left on their own to survive.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Shelly has a good comment. I like it. Shelly from YouTube, transparency for foreign governments, but not for us. I do feel as though our government does hide, or at least, dissemble and pretend that they're way better than they are, and that what they're doing isn't what they're doing. I agree with that. Liars. They're a bunch of liars.
Yeah, that's true. And we get to the couple other quick ones before we go to the next segment. But Shelly says, a brewery in New York. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of breweries around here. Like my neighborhood, no kidding, I could probably walk to like 8 breweries within a mile of my house.
That was a deregulation ploy by Cuomo that got that started, the rebirth of breweries. Certainly there were some bribes involved and stuff like that, but whatever.
Yeah, but no, one of the few like relatively good things was making it easier for craft breweries to open. And now, I got a ton of them in my neighborhood, plus a distillery. And then Steve Becker on Facebook had also asked where Sager's was if they wanted to go to that event that I was promoting. It's 46 Sager Drive. It's at the corner of University. It's near University and Culver in Rochester. If you want to go to the event, it's $35 a ticket. But I'll be there. I'll be drinking beer, be hanging out.
Hanging out with Kevin is worth $35, guys.
Yeah, so and it supports a local tool library too. So like people anywhere in the Rochester region can go get it and borrow different types of tools. They just got like an electric wood chipper in there. See how that works.
So look, like in $1910, that's only like $1. It's only going to cost you guys $1 in real money. Don't even worry about it. Major complaint: no pistol ammo at Walmart. That is true. They do only carry long rifle ammunition and shotgun ammunition and 22 ammunition.
Yeah. And Shellhead YouTube says, I was joking. We have more breweries than churches in New York.
That's probably true. We're way more pro brewery than we are pro church.
Yeah, I think I could walk to like 4 churches that I know of, but yeah, probably 8 breweries. And John on YouTube says, walk to 5, crawl to the rest. Yeah, basically.
Fair enough. Can do.
Can't even make it to all of them in one night anymore. All right, we should head back, and we're going to talk about some January 6th stuff, right?
Yeah, we got him, man. We got him.
Talk about the Proud Boys and the Stuart Rhodes ended up getting his jail sentence too, right? Talk about him.
Who?
Stuart Rhodes. He's the Oath Keepers guy.
Oh yeah. Yep. We should talk about that.
So and then the Rochester guy too, and then whether or not they should get as long of jail sentences. All right, so we're gonna go back in 10 seconds. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Bearing O'Connor.
I'm still here, Kevin, and I think we're about to move on to one of the probably more controversial subjects going on in our society right now, with regular news breaking about sentences being handed down. Finally, guys, first of all, this is 3 years later. Okay, like first of all, that in and of itself, Kevin, I don't know where you're going to go with this, but there's been, I want to say, a distinct miscarriage of justice in dealing with these people on a lot of levels. A lot of people are really happy that they're what we consider to be fair due process has been violated. What direction? I think I kind of monopolized the last segment, and I kind of want to let you. I want to play off you for this segment. What do you say?
Yeah, sure. Well, so we'll just start with like kind of stating how it is. Like, there's a handful of people from like the January 6th event, riot, protest, whatever you're gonna call it, like who have gotten really, really high sentences. So like you talk about like folks who are organizers within the Proud Boys and within the Oath Keepers, and like a few folks who are building a rally and who had a plan to challenge the results of the election that included entering the Capitol building, right? And then there's also folks who are like, there's a couple in between ones, like a guy from Rochester, Dominic Pizzola, who just got a 10-year sentence, and I think he's only going to serve like 7 more years on top of that because he was in jail for 3. He got that. He was one of the guys. He had stolen a police riot shield and smashed a window with it, and like kind of, the prosecutors saw him as like leading the way of entering into the Capitol building. So therefore, one of the instigators had thrown the book at him. A bunch of other folks, like some folks, like they served like, or they might have been incarcerated for a few months, or they got like a probation charge or something like that, right? For trespassing or something like that. Most of the people there, they got that stuff, but like so far, like a handful of folks are getting like, particularly the folks who are involved with like the Proud Boys organizing. That I accidentally closed the tab with the guy's name on it, but yeah, the basically what the prosecutors want to do, like Merrick Garland wanted to do, was like, hey, these guys are the ringleaders. We need to make an example of them. They're treating them as like they charge them with seditious conspiracy, right? So sedition, not a charge that gets thrown around too much, because this is such a serious and traumatic event that we need to make an example of them, right? And so I think one of the years is one of them was like what 27 years.
22 years is
22
the
is
most
the one
recent
I was
one.
thinking of.
He wasn't even, so this guy was an organizer.
Enrique Taro, right?
Yeah.
Enrique
He wasn't
Tarrio.
even there on January 6th. Okay. So, and
Was he the guy who was arrested beforehand?
Yeah, he might have been. I'm not sure when he got arrested. I do want to be clear that they had an intent to get the election results sent back to the states for at least recertification and possible revoting, because they were operating under the impression that there was a distinct and drastic amount of fraud. Now, does that, I have a problem with them getting charged and convicted of things like seditious conspiracy when they're saying what we want to do is occupy the Capitol building and have things get revoted on because we think there was fraud. I'm not saying that they should be without consequence, because arguably, they were wrong, right? Not arguably, they were wrong about the fraud charges. I think honestly, like, I got to be honest, the Republican Party is falling back on this. There was fraud during the election, when in fact they haven't found a good strategic way to combat the things where they did get taken advantage of, where they got outplayed by the Democratic Party, or where they got outplayed by big money with getting laws changed that benefited Democrats. Like, but okay.
Well, I mean, like to me, like, it's on the political level, it's an excuse not to like deal with like the consequences of their own bad actions, their failures during COVID.
Sure.
Their
Oh yeah, I like it. Okay.
Yeah, among many other things, right? Like throughout like the Trump presidency, and running candidates who didn't speak to issues that voters cared about, just played into culture war issues, which they did quite a bit on the right, and they faced electoral consequences for that. Like, people were just like, nope, I'm done with that. I'm going to vote for a boring Democrat instead, right? And Joe Biden is a boring Democrat. Like, that's what he is. Like, he is terrible in a whole bunch of different ways, but like a lot of people are just like, yeah, that's at least I won't have to like deal with like the president's nonsense every day, right? Like, that's how a lot of people saw it. Like, when I talk to like normal people, like, who chose to vote for Joe Biden, even though I would try to convince them to vote libertarian, they're like, just Trump seems like a jerk, and Joe Biden, like, he's the other guy. Okay. So that's how it ended up happening, right? And so then you got these folks, like, because I want, like, folks listening on WS, I want you to think about like what would happen if like the reverse happened. Like, we have Bernie Sanders running for president, and like a bunch of his folks decide to like occupy the Capitol building. They do occupy the Capitol because like they don't like the results of the election, and they claim there's fraud, but there's like, how would you look at that? Like, obviously you'd say like throw the book at them, go jail, right? You can't like disrupt the process of the peaceful transfer of power because you don't like the results. And that's kind of how I see this, is like,
okay, so I think what they would ask you, Kevin, or what they would say is, well, what would happen if a bunch of Bernie supporters did that? We saw what happened with, riots or protests in the Capitol. We saw with a lot of property destruction.
I mean, a bunch of those folks went to jail.
Right, but I'm sympathetic to the fact that we spent a summer, prior to this, rioting and arguing and having like major conflagrations in towns where people didn't seem to be adequately punished. We've got guys getting 16 months for burning down a building, or at least participating in that. So what do we say? How do we square the sentences of 22 years for seditious conspiracy with other violence that we've seen? And I think I'm sympathetic to this conversation. I'm not sure.
So 2 points there.
Right.
There were a handful of people at like Rochester specifically, like the type of people who like smashed the windows on cop cars and tried to set stuff on fire. They're going to jail for like a decade. Like, they're going to jail for a long time. They got pretty gnarly sentences thrown at them. Only a handful of people in this instance are going to be getting long jail sentences, but I tend to kind of be sympathetic with, this is one of those examples of like they're trying to make an example of someone, right?
Yeah.
They're like, if we had like a truly like neutral justice system, and we just looked at this like based on exactly what they did, then maybe they would have gotten lower sentences, right? And again, like to me,
Sure.
like I'm generally like even people who are very dumb or violent or dangerous, like probably shouldn't go to jail for that long.
Right,
Like,
because they're dumb and they made a dumb mistake, right? Or,
yeah,
arguably, so if I was to say that this is a case of successful prosecutorial overreach, and when I want you guys to listen to me when I'm talking about prosecutorial overreach against some poor 17-year-old kid who made a stupid mistake, are you guys now going to listen to me about that? Because that's at least part of what's going on
yeah.
here on a federal level. How do you like that?
No, that's what it is. Cause that's like it's the same thing. Like Merrick Garland, he wants that, he wants like this trophy, right?
The
Again,
feather in
like
his cap,
it, and
Kevin.
again, I also I definitely think that there should be consequences for these guys. But yeah, he wants a feather in his cap. And like this happens in local DA's offices all the time. We're like, hey, I
Every
want this
day,
like
man.
this guy that I've painted as a bad guy. And sometimes they legitimately are. I'm gonna like I'm gonna try to get them in jail for like 30 years. Like sometimes like a 17, 18-year-old, like, guy, 30 years, like half their life. All right. And that's what they do. And they really try to go after these folks. And that's what they get to say and run on for the reelection campaigns. And there's some bad folks who really should be in jail for a long time, but we overdo it so much because the incentives are so bad in these some of these situations that like our justice system is kind of it's strange. Like even for like our violent criminals, like we send them to jail for way, way, way longer than like most other places around the world do, which is interesting.
I think those are good facts to present around this case, that this isn't just Merrick Garland, that this happens every single day. And it's an issue where I think liberals are a little bit more sympathetic than red team people are, than conservatives are, because here we are saying, like, look, and libertarians obviously have long been talking about prosecutorial overreach and the negotiating strategies of district attorneys overcharging for minor crimes, overcharging for somewhat serious crimes, always with the intent of getting that feather in their cap, of getting the most enforceable style conviction of an agreement from the a lot of times the victim of a prosecutorial overreach system, of getting that agreement, because you can't really appeal an agreement. Okay. It has to be like,
Yeah.
that's the issue. That's one of the many issues. That's why these jerks do it.
Well, yeah, they scare you, and you agree to these things, and that's how it goes. And I'm gonna point out, like, so Patricia says Jacob Chandler is the QAnon shaman guy, dude.
Yeah.
Whatever. He's out doing interviews, like, oh, sort of, but he did like plead guilty to like this thing because he thought, understandably, like they're gonna throw the book at me if I fight this. Like I'm gonna be one of those guys who's gonna end up in jail for 10 years, right?
Yes.
And they, you
For
know.
doing, they have videos of what that guy did. Everything of him saying, "Hey, look, guys, let's back out of this building. Trump doesn't want us here now. He just like this. His guy just called me." Like they have videos of him walking down the hallway. They have videos of him being escorted by police officers. They have no videos of him participating in actual violence. And
I don't know.
I think the
He
bottom
should
line
probably
is,
still be.
what's that?
I don't know. Like again, I still think there should be some consequences for it for the guy. But like originally, what they're trying to charge him, sentence him to would be like 41 months if he
Yeah,
didn't plead guilty, right? Like they're going to try to get 41 months from him, which is a long time. Like any time in jail is a long time.
sure
And
it is.
that's the
Arguably, like Kevin, we get into this issue of, there's been times in the past where people march in a protest form up to the Capitol, and they're welcomed in with, welcome in as a political virtue signal. They're welcome with open arms into the Capitol. Some people felt that that's what happened this day. Obviously,
they were trying to interrupt the peaceful transfer of power though. Like they
they
were.
were trying to interrupt Congress's moment that day. They were definitely trying to do that. Now, were they trying to interrupt? If they were advocating for further peaceful transfer of power, but like to have some things reworked and revoted, even if they were wrong, were they trying to interrupt? I get what you're saying. I'm just saying there's a little bit of a philosophical conundrum there for me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
hopefully you can at least
Yeah,
understand
sure.
what I'm
I mean,
saying. You
like,
don't necessarily have to agree with it.
so I remember, remember the Tennessee legislature where like they ended up kicking out the one guy, and because he was kind of like leading to the disruption of like legislature business.
He was a legislator, though.
He was a legislator. He was,
and
but,
he's a jerk on Twitter.
Yeah, no, he is absolutely right. But like he got people in and was shouting down people and like disrupting like the normal functioning of government. Like there, it's tough because like there needs to be spots for protest, but there also needs to be spots for like the function of normal like government business.
Charge
And
that
like
kid with seditious conspiracy and see how that goes.
Yeah.
He got
I
fired
mean-
and he got his job back. Like that's it. That's
He
what
did,
happened
right?
to him. You know.
Well, and good people do all this stuff. Like you could see like in Atlanta too. Like it might be, I don't know if it's the same prosecutor, but they're like the people protesting, like they call it Cop City down there. Like basically a new police training facility. It's a bunch of folks are real mad about it. But they charged them. They brought like RICO charges against a bunch of people. They're trying to roll up a whole like thing, right? Again,
Oh, man.
which there are some like violent fools who are part of that, but also like some people who are just trying to, express their like disagreement with building a police officer training facility in that area, right? Like, and they have a right to do that. And now they're trying to roll them up into like a big conspiracy thing. Like, again, these things end up like growing into like the powers that like get exercised against your political enemies end up growing into things that will be used against you.
Right. I agree. That's another broad offering of a libertarian message, right? Like, stop begging for the government to take power that they are eventually going to use to put their boot on your neck with. Like, guys, get a grip, man. You know? Just saying.
That's exactly how it is. And so we are going to have to head the break soon. When we come back, we might shift to a somewhat lighter topic. I'm going to go on a rant about historical preservation.
Do it,
guys. I know I'm a curmudgeon on this. I know I am. Just bear with me for a minute. I'm going to talk about a case specifically in Rochester about an old cobblestone house that is getting preserved. And now
those land banks are at it again, Kevin. They're at it again.
All right. Thanks again for joining us on WYSL. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. Yeah. So I know it's going to be an unpopular opinion. No one likes this opinion. Everyone I've asked, like, Kevin, you're being a jerk.
I can't wait to hear your take on it, man, because I'm like, I freaking hate land banks, but like, all right, if they want to buy an old building in a town, it's fine. Like, who cares? Like, that's right. Actually a good use of that stupid money that they got from George Soros.
George Soros. All right.
That's a good use of that Soros.
If they got George Soros money, like that would be better. Like they get New York State money, and people like, and I know they get money from like profiting off of like selling some of the houses and stuff, but people are always like, you don't understand. It's not the city money. It's not government money. It's the state money. I'm like, it's still taxpayer money, guys. Like, it's
this is going to be great. I'm going to be glad to hear this from you. That's good stuff.
All right.
Because I hate land banks, what they're doing in my local area. Now, obviously, I'll get to once again talk about that. I'll keep it short, though.
All right. This is a house in my neighborhood, so that's why I like.
Yeah, just bulldoze it. Let somebody build something. All right, demography now. The other option besides Wally World is Amazon. Pick your poison. Alibaba competes with Wally, both of those two, and Wally World does a nice job of actually. They're stepping up to the plate to actually offer a real competition to Amazon, where they're like, "Hey, we can get your stuff here to our store tomorrow. Pick it up." Grab some milk while you're here. You can't do that with Amazon. See?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? They do a nice job with it.
You sort of can. I got Whole Foods now, and they deliver. I'm gonna get like Whole Foods to drop me off like via drone, like some milk, some kale, and like a back massager from Amazon. Like just send the drone over, drop it off on my like front porch.
Do they have drones?
Not yet, but like they're coming.
I'm not looking forward to the police having drones, but I'm looking forward to like a drone bringing me a pizza from my local pizza place. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's going to be kind of epic.
Yeah. No, I think that's going to be cool too. Because you got like the police who are using drones during Labor Day weekend in New York City to monitor parties. And then,
my God, they got them all over. They got the dog drones. They got the Bozo the Clown looking drones. They've,
Yeah, awesome but I agree though. I'm excited for pizza drones, right? Like if you can get like real quick pizza over to me, like yes, I'm for it. Like I love it.
What about the swarms of drones that the military is talking about using and actually may have used in Ukraine or Russia, like sending out swarms of drones armed with like explosives? How cool is that going
We
to
got
be?
that. Well, yeah, cool
No,
or
it's
terrifying. Like they got all these like because
terrifying.
I was watching a TikTok about cardboard drones that that Australia sold like Ukraine a bunch of cardboard drones. Trying to
Nice.
remember the creator. The creator's like a radar, like missile defense type of guy. So
Okay.
he was talking about like, wait, can we defend against this?
I love it. You know,
Uh, but
anytime we can fight power with, unconventional means, it makes me happy.
yeah, so we're gonna go back at 51 though. We'll talk about that, and then maybe we'll get to the other stuff, the Elon Musk stuff.
Okay.
We'll see what we get to.
Yeah. Elon Musk versus the ADL. It's going to be a battle royale.
Yeah. So, but I got mixed feelings in that one as usual, sitting in the middle. But all right, we're gonna be back in 10, 5. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
Still here, Kevin. Still here. We're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and like land trusts. They are a boon to society, where they're funded by rich people and the government. They get nonprofit status. They can buy whatever they want. They have shrewd lawyers that get to craft sales contracts because they buy directly from the government. And they just do it to benefit society, Kevin. And I just can't believe where you're going to be going with this. That's all I want to say.
Right. So the topic at hand is historical preservation. Just because specifically there's a situation in Rochester, in my neighborhood, where you got this real old cobblestone house, right? It's the last one in the city. There's a bunch of cobblestone houses around like the county and the area, but it's the last one in the city. It's a 200-year-old house, very old house.
Beautiful, historic, Kevin.
It is historic. It is not beautiful. It looks like garbage, right? Like it is in my neighborhood. Like it's on Culver Road. It looks like garbage. In fact, like I used to like say like, oh yeah, we should preserve this. This is cool. It's a neat thing, right? And we did like a neighborhood event, like trick-or-treating event there. Like I don't know, it must have been like 6 or 7 years ago, where we talked about trying to like raise awareness and save the house. Sure. It's been empty for over 10 years. It's boarded up. It's full of like vermin and like. There's also it's an eyesore on the corner.
Yeah.
The reason why it's that empty is because the landlord was like, I can't pay all the fines the city has given me. I can't pay for the repairs to get it done. It's just in order to fix it up enough, in order to make it like usable for anything, definitely not usable for a residence, but like even difficult to use for like a commercial use. It's too expensive. The guy couldn't do it. So what he was thinking of doing is just knocking it down and turning it into a parking lot, basically. Like, I mean, like literally like a dollar store parking lot.
Okay.
Because like, he's like, I don't know what else to do with this. It's too expensive. Like, and I can't pay the fines for this thing. I just got to tear it down. People were upset about this, right? Because like, oh, how would you dare this foolish landlord tear down this old house and turn it into a parking lot. And I'm over here as a curmudgeon being like, yes, that's probably the best economic use, and it would get rid of an eyesore in our neighborhood. Sorry, absolutely. I know I'm a grump about this stuff, but and I know people are like, oh, but it's an old house. It's the last cobblestone house in Rochester, and like, it's there's a senator that lived there, and like, well, I'm like, okay, sure, but like, what are you gonna do with it? What are you going to do with this space? Like who's going to take care of it? Like this guy has been like trying to get rid of it for a while. It didn't seem like the Landmark Society was willing to make a deal with him to do it. Like they've known about this spot for a long time. And everyone everyone likes the idea of saving an old thing, but they don't actually want to pay for it themselves. No one's really going to put up their own money to do this. At least not yet.
They're going to demonize a landlord who's been struggling under penalties in a punitive governmental system. They're going to demonize this guy like he's made of money and complain about what he doesn't do with it, yet do nothing themselves. I get it.
Yeah. So, and I have no opinion on the landlord, good or bad. Like I just like economically, I get it. Right. So what what ended up happening is like the story broke that the guy was thinking of tearing down this place, and eventually like word got around that maybe he could just donate it to the land trust, get rid of all the liability, and that's going to be the better deal for this. So he donated it to the land trust in the city, and now it is the city's problem. And they promised a quick resolution to this. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they do get a quick resolution. I hope that they take this property and someone like fixes it up and turns it into something like useful or interesting. But I don't think that's going to happen because
they're probably going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, find a perfect buyer, and prop up the property values in your neighborhood so they can charge you all more taxes on your property. That's going to be the land trust because it's operating in conjunction with the city. That's going to be their game plan. That's what they're going to do.
Right. And so like it's because the land trust, like how it works is it was like formed by the city, but it's like a separate nonprofit, and it's funded by like their own activities, like the sales of like lands, and like a New York State like grant program that's funded by like basically like financial crime, like fines.
Sure.
So that's how it ends up getting funded. And so like when people are like, oh, this isn't going to cost any taxpayer money, I'm like, it probably will, and like it'll just be like my prediction. Again, maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe like a rich benefactor will come in and fix it up, or Landmark Society will do a capital campaign and do it, or whatever. But my prediction is that it's going to end up being a New York State grant somehow, and it's going to be a lot of money to fix up this property that like I would rather just see, like, I didn't want to see it turned into a parking lot. That kind of stinks. I'd rather see it turned into like an apartment building or something, right?
Sure.
Like we need more housing in Rochester. Like it's a thing that like is needed in this area, but like that corner has been an eyesore forever. I'm worried it's going to be an eyesore for another 10 years. It's going to be expensive to fix it up because like, again, fixing up really old houses is tough because you got to, it's difficult enough even if you don't care about preserving everything. It's even more difficult if like you have like architectural historians like breathing down your neck to like make sure that everything's perfect and you don't like change anything too significantly.
Yeah, I mean,
like, it's expensive.
I can offer a little feedback. Like, do you want to know why they don't stack cobblestones up all over the place into buildings? Like, because it's really hard and it doesn't last long and it needs constant maintenance. Why do they take cobblestones and bury them under roads? Because they're relatively stable and easy to manipulate into place. And that's how we built the Romans built their roads. And look, it's not a great medium for building. It's unpredictable. It's weird shaped. It takes very highly skilled labor to assemble it correctly and beautifully. And it's in a way unrealistic unless it's some sort of rich person's pipe dream. Like it's unrealistic. So there you go. You got me on your side, Kevin. It's not going to be worth whatever money they put in it.
No, right. And then like I said, my thought generally, like, is there a lot of historical preservation, but it's definitely not all. I love, like, I studied history. I'm a big fan of like some historical but a lot of it ends up being a bit overrated, right? Because you end up like sometimes you end up with these homes that are like really difficult for average people to be able to maintain properly, or like, worst case, you get like a whole neighborhood designated with like historical status in a way that restricts your ability because you live in a historical district to be able to like make modifications to your house, which these exist in Rochester. And like, I'm very glad my 100-year-old house so far isn't like considered worthy of historical preservation.
Yeah.
But because then like, again, every single thing gets an extra layer of scrutiny. You're already probably gonna need to go like to a variance like hearing to be able to like make any modifications to your house anyway. And now you have to add an additional layer of bureaucracy on top of that, an additional layer of expense, which makes staying in your home as an average homeowner inaccessible, right? So
you're basically talking about an adjunct to zoning, right? Historical preservation is a type of zoning. I basically stand against zoning for all the issues, all the reasons that you listed. It limits people's ability to fix their houses. It limits people's ability to rent their houses out. It limits people to use their house for whatever reason they think is best. Like it's the same kind of thing. I wouldn't want to even make it a parking lot, man. Like, you know, that's it. Make it a parking lot. It's not feasible.
No, and then parking lot you can turn into something else. So I'd rather see it turned into like apartment buildings or something like that. It's a busy street corner with like a lot of potential, and that would be so it'd be great to see something vibrant go there instead of just like a decrepit, empty, not taken care of house that maybe the city will take care of it well and it will at least look nicer. But I'm betting the plywood over the windows is going to be around for a minute.
Yeah, yeah. I look. Arguably, I've long railed about land trusts and their what people call what I think people think is a virtuous endeavor in buying property directly from the county in Otsego County. They do plenty of this. Basically then negotiating for a payment in lieu of taxes and then basically
Right.
getting the benefit from using that property and then basically parasiting a little bit off the taxpayers. When a guy can go in, buy $100,000 worth of property, a land trust can go and buy that same $100,000 directly from the government, negotiate a sweetheart deal, get a tax abatement situation, and not have to support a family off that, and maybe just hold it for carbon credits or some other nonsense, right? Like, it's a real problem. And who picks up the tab? The taxpayers of Otsego County, and one of the lowest paid counties in the state. So it's like this virtue signal that we all have to pay for. Uh, Honestly, you're going to see it in your very own neighborhood, Kevin. A virtue signal that you all have to pay for.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Rochester. Good job.
Hooray. Good. I hope I'm wrong about this. And I get like in theory, the way land trust should work is that like they take land that like or like buildings that are a mess and they take on the liability of fixing it up and putting it back into productive use, right? And they
Sure.
can do that by helping to leverage that stuff. And like I get that in theory. It's just in practice
Can I ask, what do you think the last landowner would have done something with it had he not been facing fines? Had he been offered certain beneficial tax structures for participating in renovating that property? And arguably, anybody gets bribed enough from the government, they're going to do something positive with that money.
maybe he would have done something good. He had plenty of time. Like I'm not saying that that last landlord was like a good or industrious guy necessarily. Like he let it sit for a long time. He let those problems build up. Like it's stuff happens, right?
Sure. And property can break you, right? Like he probably romanticized the notion of owning a cobblestone house of
I'm
historic
sure.
significance in Rochester and realized, oh my God. And then the city went after him, of course, because he couldn't actually afford to take care of it. And that's a very sad thing. And then when I know that the standard operating procedure is to then demonize that guy because he's a landlord, I get it. It's wrong. It's malicious. It's unintentionally malice or malicious, but it's still malicious,
Yeah. No, but people like end up in these situations. They have a property that they absolutely cannot maintain for various reasons. Sometimes it's the government's fault. Sometimes it's like fines that are unnecessary or regulations that are unnecessary. But sometimes it is like legitimate neglect, right? And
sure, it's a disaster, a lifetime disaster. Like I get it. Like all those things
turns
can
to a
happen.
money pit.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
Yeah, no, and I said I won't like hate on the idea of land trust altogether, like because there are other land trusts like that are like nature conservation land trusts that I
Yeah, I
actually
hate
think
them.
are
They're
kind
the
of
worst.
nice. You hate those too?
Yeah, no, I hate them. They're the worst. They're the
The
ones that are
worst.
getting sweetheart beneficial deals in Otsego County that the Otsego County taxpayer is at least in part sharing in the expense of. So yes, like that's what I'm arguing
Right.
against. One of those things.
Because they're getting taxpayer subsidized, right? So if
Yeah,
they're getting
getting
donations,
taxpayer
they're totally
subsidized.
nonprofit. That
Yeah.
you'd be all right with that. Yeah.
Is it the worst subsidy in the world? No, but it's one of them. It's like a problem, and it's contributing to a very expensive situation here, a very large reluctance of our tax people, our tax property people, to be negotiable in what a property might be worth. You have to fight them in court to get a proper assessment on your property because they have bills to pay. And that is in part, the pressure on them is at least in part because of we have so much untaxed property in Otsego County, and they don't care about the people that are paying the taxes. That's it. It's gross. Sorry.
Right. No, that makes sense, right? And that land's not in productive use. It's not in the tax rolls. It's subsidized, so you end up like lose in that situation. I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah. I got that's a totally valid criticism. I understand that. I see the consequence of like Genesee Land Trust has like hiking trails around here that I kind of like. I use them a lot. So
And I believe Patty in the comments was saying one of her land trusts in her area does some cool events to raise awareness about the land trust and make themselves look really good. I get that too. I do. Like, I get it. There's a use in society for nonprofits. They can afford to do things that some developer, entrepreneur, some 16-year-old kid's never going to be able to afford to do. They can do it for less money because they don't have to try to make a profit. They don't have to make money to stay in business. They have a great relationship with their local government that will keep them in business. And so that's fine. Great. They get to do what they want. It's awesome.
That's the thing. I'm glad you're not totally against the idea of nonprofits.
No, not totally. Just like 98% against them.
There we go. Just mostly against nonprofits. And John says, steal his house in Rondecourt near Culver on East Ridge was put on a truck, and the pizzeria there is now delish. I'm gonna have to look this up, man.
Wouldn't that be? Yeah,
they could just. It is also on Culver. Like, just move the house. Have they thought about just taking the house and pushing it somewhere else?
Well, a pile of cobblestones will quickly lose the air spaces in between the open air spaces if you put it on anything that vibrates. So it arguably
is that not going to work? I don't know, man. I'm not.
It will work. It will turn it. You can move that pile of cobblestones to a road base somewhere, and it will be excellent road base material. Excellent.
All right. Well, on that note, we are out of time for the radio show. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution on WYSL. For you other folks, we're going to keep going for a few minutes.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, WYSL audience. Have a great night, folks. Take care. All right. Hopefully I got the timing right on that one. Tim, I don't know if I told you this. I got the timing wrong on like the show where we talked about the Trump indictment.
Oh no.
And I was like, I ended the show 5 minutes early on accident. So then I had to include this stuff in the bonus show and censor out the word jackass in the bonus show. So that Trump conversation made it into the radio show.
When I listened to the podcast, I caught you censoring some words and I couldn't quite remember what the words were. So like I caught that. So that was awesome.
No, because I censored it because I was like, I got to make a radio safe version of this.
That show was kind of funny, man. We had great comments that night, and you and I were kind of like literally not caring too much. Like we were just very loose communication, which I think makes for a good show. Kind of like how it's going tonight. So look, as you know, I get caught up quickly in excitable populist things, and so Elon Musk taking on the ADL in a way makes me happy. Like I'm just like, okay, like let's all have this argument. This is a great argument to have. The ADL is talking about hate speech. I think that on some level, Elon Musk has a right to, patrol speech on his privately owned platform. But also, like, I haven't seen what the ADL is complaining about. So in my feed, other than occasionally when I make a joke like on Marjorie Taylor Greene's pages, who's like making a comment about defunding the government. I'm like, yeah, let's get this ball rolling. Let's defund the government. And 47,000 liberals start coming in and calling me, oh, well, Trump lost, you big dummy. And all their other vacuous insults that I'm just like, I don't think you know who you're talking to.
No, I can't believe you're a Trump supporter.
It just goes on. And the insult level just gets more and more epic. And it's just like, wow, you seem really angry, and of course I play right into that because I have a good time, messing with people. But anyway, so what's the ADL? I guess the first thing I want to ask you is what is the allegation here by the ADL that what did Elon do to increase hatred towards Jewish people online?
Right. And so again, what they're advocating for is they are saying like that Twitter made a more hostile environment. The ADL stands for Anti-Defamation League. And they're saying that there's a rise in anti-Semitic like responses. And the reason why Elon Musk is responsible for this is because he allowed a bunch of accounts that were previously banned to get reactivated, and they've accused him of lowering standards that would in the previous ownership have gotten people removed from the platform for being like, racist, anti-Semitic, and otherwise like creating a hostile environment for people who are just trying to use the, Twitter for your normal cutthroat arguments. and so like I'll say like I don't know that I've seen more of it. I think it's like it's always kind of been there. Like occasionally, like if and you'll see this, they kind of like hide the responses. Like if you go into like the replies of someone, like especially like left wing people, but like sometimes like if you on the libertarian accounts that lean alt right, you'll see this type of stuff pop up too. You go into other responses, that's where all that lives.
Okay.
And so like it's there, like really like nasty racist stuff does like live out there. I don't know I've
Oh,
seen
okay. All
more of
right.
it, but like
Okay.
there's definitely a lot of it there. And some people like say that they've experienced more of that. And then you get talk of like Elon Musk saying like maybe we'll stop the block button, which I think it would be a mistake, honestly.
I think he was trolling, and then what he
He
did
might have
was
been.
kind of go around and block a bunch of people after
He did
that
that.
word that news broke. I don't know if he was trolling. I don't know if he was actually thinking about it. I think it would be a loss to the platform because it does allow the freedom of association, and of course, an important part of the freedom of association is the freedom to disassociate as well. Actually, even a more important part of the freedom of association is the freedom to disassociate, and the black button obviously is a tool to disassociate yourself with
That's
somebody.
right.
So I like it.
Yeah, you should be able to do that. So that's what the ADL is saying. And the ADL for like their part is also like trying to talk to the Biden administration about like getting the government more involved and like cracking down on hostile speech on like social media platforms.
Great.
I
Great.
I don't agree with that.
Sure.
And then Elon Musk, because like they're going after him, it's like, hey, maybe I'll just like ban ADL from the platform, right?
Right, which would be a fun way to handle this. And then his latest
Right.
is he's going to sue the ADL because basically the ADL exists, makes their money by suing people and getting
Yeah,
paid
right.
off. Like I think the ADL was hoping for a big payoff because that's guys. Look,
That
regardless of whether you think they're right or wrong, a strategy of these left wing and right wing, justice warrior types is to threaten people with boycotts and to threaten to sue them for a favor in return, be it money, be it platform reach, for some sort of compensation. And it's like the Jesse Jackson model of fixing social injustice, right? He's like, what we're going to do is shake you down. And if you give me $1 million, I won't shake you down, but I'll go shake down that guy down the street. And it's worked in the past, right? So I
right.
feel as though the ADL
Yeah.
does some of that. Perhaps I'm
Yeah.
wrong. Perhaps
No,
I'm
I mean
wrong.
that's a bit of this. So I mean, a couple other issues related to that. It's like, okay, like Elon's saying like they're responsible for the loss of half of Twitter's value, like ADL specifically, and we're gonna bring a defamation suit against them. Like,
Yeah,
all right, that's
it's total troll, right? Like it would be
like
ethically
I
wrong.
don't think he's. Hopefully he's not serious about it. Sometimes he ends up like I think it's like his followers like egg him on,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
and
I
then
know.
like he's like, well, this was a joke, but now I'm gonna really do it.
Look,
No,
I like that. I feel as though some of our social justice venues, like the ACLU and perhaps the ADL, had at a time a more profound impact in our society. And so I'm going to pivot away from the ADL and talk about the ACLU, who decided to go to bat. Like, okay, one of the things that made the ACLU famous was their adherence to principle and arguing for the Nazis in Skokie, Illinois. That put them not arguing for the Nazis, arguing for the Nazis' right to have a parade and a demonstration, right? And so they now have morphed into a social justice warrior machine where they're talking about a murdering rapist thug who didn't get the proper health care. And at the end of their diatribe about this guy, they say, and we've always been anti-death penalty. And I'm like, okay, I am very much myself, okay, for my personal reasons, my personal views, my personal philosophy, very much anti-death penalty, okay? I think that that's a power the state shouldn't have. I don't think it's punitive. I don't think it's protective of society. I think it's just an unnecessary power for the government to have. And we shouldn't even have to debate over it, because if we didn't debate over it, it would still be cheaper to house these guys than debate over whether we're going to kill them. Okay. Like, so I'm anti-death penalty overall. And I admire the ACLU's position there, but I don't think you need to virtue signal the way that they did. Does that make sense? And so I feel as though there was a time when they were more important, and perhaps now they're just trying to capture a particular thread of social justice. I don't know.
Oh, sure. No, I generally agree with that. And like my criticism of the ACLU isn't like the virtue signaling about the death penalty, which I'm also against. It's, and I think you can make like a civil liberties argument for it. It's more like when they throw out like their core principles of defending like free speech, no matter what, for the sake of like social justice principles. Like, well, we can't defend this bad guy this time because they're just too bad. Like, guys, you literally defended Nazis, like, and they were right to. Like, they those Nazis are terrible. They're bad people. They have a right to march in the street because, like, protecting that right fundamentally for absolutely everyone is like how you preserve that right for the people who you agree with, who might one day have a controversial opinion, right? And the same thing we had talked about earlier with like the prosecution side, right? Like
Yeah,
it's same thing, right?
exactly.
If you don't want government to abuse you in the future, make sure that you don't give them the power to arbitrarily abuse your enemies, right?
Your perceived enemies, right? Because we've got a lot of
Yeah.
people out there calling people their enemies when it's really you're mad at your neighbor, and like, or your interpretation of people being enemies is going to allow you to do violence against your neighbor down the road. Like, everybody just needs to chill out, man. Just chill out. That's all I'm saying. Chill out.
Yeah. But like ADL can kind of be like the ACLU in that sense, in that like they end up having a particular political agenda. And again, I don't want them to be banned, and a lot of people asking them to be banned on X / Twitter are kind of jerks.
So
But-
yeah, absolutely. But I get caught up in the elements of the humor in it. I get caught up in the elements of little petty back and forth between relatively famous individuals. I get a good laugh out of stuff like that, Kevin. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but I'm not.
no, fair enough. But hey, do you want to talk about the Liberty Safe thing?
Oh my God, I wish we had gotten a few shots at the Liberty Safe during the show. Yeah, so guys, check this out. I'm gonna go to my Facebook page. I posted a meme. Well, I posted a meme of a statement by Liberty Safe, which is, well, honestly, like, in a way, unironically hilarious, right? Because they're gun safe. Okay, let's start with this premise. What they make are supposedly safe places to keep your guns. Okay, on August 30th, 2023, Liberty Safe was contacted by the FBI, and you guys all know how Kevin and I have discussed some of the issues with the FBI. But anyways, requesting the access code, and I think everybody in the world who owns guns needs to know that perhaps this bug about Liberty Safe could be a problem. Requesting the access code to the safe of an individual with whom they had a warrant to search their property. Our company protocol is to provide access codes to law enforcement if a warrant grants them access to a property. Not there's no mention of a warrant specifically granting access to a safe, okay? That could be arguably, I would be more forgiving of Liberty Safe. Like, so after receiving the request, we received proof of the valid warrant, and only then, guys, as the heroes that Liberty Safe is, only then did we provide them with an access code. Liberty Safe had no knowledge of any of the details surrounding the investigation at the time. Liberty Safe is devoted to protecting the personal property and Second Amendment rights of our, are you though? Second Amendment rights of our customers, as has repeatedly denied requests for access codes without a warrant in the past. Wow. Okay. Like,
well, they haven't turned it over without a warrant. That's good.
like, you can't just be a cop asking for somebody's codes to their safe. Like, oh my God, like, they're proud of this. All right. So we do not give combinations without proper legal documentation being provided with authorities. This is a freaking word salad. All right. And they're trying to make pretend.
I mean, this was probably written by a lawyer.
Right. We regularly update our policies to ensure both compliance with federal and state law, which, as far as I know, has nothing to do with what they did. There's no, as far as I know, there's no like, hey, we have the right to access your safe. I think you have to get a court order for that. So without any kind of further communication from a judge, Liberty
Well, they had a
Safe
warrant, right?
all there was a warrant to
I mean,
access
what
a
warrants?
property.
I mean,
A warrant to access a property, right? Like, that's
is
all.
that not sufficient?
Is that what's that?
Is that not sufficient to like make a request to access something
Liberty
that you.
Safe? I don't know. It's probably sufficient to make the request. Would it be sufficient for Liberty Safe to grant the access codes? I know that Apple stood on principle and does not give federal authorities the right to unlock people's
Well,
phones.
so here's the difference, right? Like,
Yeah.
because this is what happened with Apple. They cannot do it because they had built their phone in a way in which they didn't build a backdoor for themselves.
Okay.
So
Good.
and then they and the discussion they ended up having after that is like, should Apple be compelled by the government to create an encryption backdoor for access to phones when the government serves them a warrant to do this? Liberty Safe had that backdoor. They had a way to be able to access codes if one of their safe owners lost it and needed to retrieve access to that safe.
So now, do you feel as though that was adequately communicated to all the safe owners, that was what the intent was for them to have a backup access to their safe?
Yeah, as I understand, again, given that I've read about this for like 10 minutes, but like
Sure.
like my understanding is like that was sold as like kind of a feature, right? Like, hey, you lose your code, you're not out of luck, and they basically say it's quicker to call a locksmith still, but like, you can talk to us, verify ownership of the safe, and like we have a way of getting in.
So does a warrant that covers searching a property, is that sufficient? If it doesn't specifically, which again, that could be an issue here, but if it doesn't specifically mention getting into a safe, is it covered? Like,
I think they would probably have to mention specifically the safe
I would
and
think
like
so, right?
serve that specifically to Liberty Safe and say like, hey, we want to access this specific safe owned by this specific person for this reason, signed by
Right.
a judge, whatever,
So what I'm seeing from their statement, which again, is a little bit word salady and most likely written by a lawyer,
Chat GPT lawyer.
a Chat GPT lawyer, because they save money. Like this lawyer produced this in half the time it would normally take using Chat GPT. Like there's an advertisement for Chat GPT. Hopefully this is not an advertisement for Liberty Safes, guys. Hopefully, in my opinion, I would want to go back to an old mechanical safe. And if they want to get in my safe, they're going to have to do the job, or they're going to have to come to an agreement with me. Like,
Yeah.
Arguably, I have nothing to hide. So if they want to get in my safe because of some radio show I did and they have a warrant, they can get in my safe. I don't care. You know what I mean? It's no big deal. Like it's fine. But arguably, people feel differently about the Second Amendment than I do. Arguably, people feel different about what they have the right to own and what I don't. I don't know what this case is. Obviously, word salad written by a lawyer, but I don't think
Second and Fourth Amendment issues.
Yeah, I do feel as though there was a violation here.
Maybe. And Sam asked the question, class action lawsuit worthy if the owners didn't know about the back door. Again, I think they knew about it. I think like it was like advertised as like a feature, or at least they would probably be able to claim like you should have known this was a feature if you read our user manual type of deal, right? But
sure.
But like, yeah, like if you don't want like any like law enforcement entity to access your stuff, like you can't have a backdoor into it, right? There can't like, and there's risks to that, right? Again, like if you have a phone and you encrypt it like fully, and then you lose your ability, like you lose your password, you lose your key to that, no one's going to be able to save your phone. It's just a brick now. It's useless. Like, sorry, like that's just what it is, right? Like that, because that's the point.
That's why you put the encryption on it. Like that.
Yeah, because you don't want like, because if you're like, I don't want some criminal or like a law enforcement officer to be able to access this phone without my permission, then that's a way to do it. You can encrypt it. Like that's a thing you can do. But if you lose your password, you're out of luck.
People who feel like they have their privacy very much under control, sometimes it helps them alleviate it, even just alleviating a nervous condition. It doesn't necessarily mean they're doing anything wrong that anyone should have a right to access, right? Like, it's just like, I don't want people knowing stuff. And so they just, even the stuff, if everybody knew, no one would care. It just doesn't matter. They feel better that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, and you can do the same thing. If you want a safe that no one could get into, there's stuff out there. I'm certain of it that like you can buy. But if you lose the combination,
You might be.
Good luck.
And look, I think there's most locksmiths can help you with a safe. It's just going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah. It's just it's going to be difficult for enough money. Like, there's a lot of problems you can fix, but
Yeah. So I got a couple of comments and then like we got to probably we've been at this for a while tonight. I'm very proud of us. Patty, a former Bernie bro, definitely leans liberal. Definitely a big fan of Larry Sharp because of his solution, and also like very happy with Larry. Offered her some help with some stuff, but she also gets called a Trumper for her radical adherence to the best that we can do is libertarianism and craft solutions locally, which is pretty awesome. I'm sorry that happens to you. I find it hilarious. I hope you do too. And then this Kim Iverson thing, I haven't, Shelly, I appreciate you pointing me in this direction because I caught like a little, what you would call like a lift, a thermal lift or a little breath of air about it, but I didn't do any research on it and I didn't check out the interview with it. But I do want to kind of, the Google algorithms, so there's been a lot of noise made about them. I want to kind of do a deeper dive on that one of these days. And then Kevin, Patty sent me an issue. Like they just caught a world record alligator in Mississippi, Missouri. Like weighs 800 pounds, man. 14 feet. 14 feet 3 inches. The longest previous one was 14 feet 1 inches. If I could have thought of a way of doing it as fake news, I would have. But this was in Mississippi, and the State Department of Wildlife and Fisheries picked up a male alligator. Oh, harvested. Good guys. Do you guys know what code word? What harvested is code for?
Explain it, Tim.
Oh, okay. That I will say it this way: that most likely the Department of Fisheries viewed that alligator as a threat to a campground or a residence area, and they harvested it. Okay, like literally made it into food. That's what harvesting means. So
that makes sense.
It does make sense.
You can make a lot of gator on a stick with that. That's
you certainly can. That's a lot of gator. Have you ever had gator?
I have.
Is it good?
It's all right. I know. I thought honestly, like it's gonna sound cliche. I thought it kind of tastes like chicken. Like it's like,
oh really?
Yeah. They have it at the state fair occasionally, and like when I grew up in Georgia, and there's a lot more of it at like the local like festivals.
Yeah. No, I would definitely eat it. I'm definitely a guy that tries all sorts of different food. I'm very though. It's funny. Like I go back to my old standards, like chicken and beef and shrimp on like once a month. Like that's my very. I go to every restaurant I go to. I have chicken parmesan. My kids think it's the most hilarious thing, and then I'm always like, "This isn't as good as my chicken parmesan." It's like such an old dad kind of thing. It's like,
okay, all right, boomer.
Call me a boomer. I get it.
Gotta venture out. You gotta try some gator, some buffalo, some ostrich.
Do I though? I just want to be full after I go into a restaurant. I don't want to be like. Excuse me. Yeah. But yeah, I don't want to be. I just want to be full. I'm going to spend $30 and not be full. So chicken parm it is.
If it works, it works. I can't knock it. I've now gotten into the stage of like, nope, I'm just buying my white New Balances, and that is my shoe. That's my shoe forever.
Welcome to the next 20 years of your life, son.
Yeah,
you finally made it. Go savage those bad boys with grass. It's gonna be awesome.
So I got my going out pair, my lawn mowing pair, and my like sealing a driveway pair. Okay, those ones are ready to retire. Like I know I'm gonna ruin them. It's fine.
But if you stay in the same vein, the fit is the same. You can have the older ones for work around the house, the medium ones for where you're like got to do some work and people got to see you. Like for me, because I do physical work, you could probably get away with 2 pairs, but then the third pair are your dress New Balances, and those you got to keep pristine. Don't even dribble coffee on them. You got to wipe it off. You know what I mean?
That's fair. That's the system generally. It's that.
Yeah.
But all right. On that note, though, we should call it a night.
Yeah.
Thanks for sticking with us, folks. Shelly, Patricia, Sam, John, all y'all. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Take care, everybody.